No, I think every challenge eventually it becomes a people issue because end of the day, I think we have to be able to sell the vision and say, here's a vision for the organization, for the customer, and how do you really encourage people and understand where the pain points are, right? It's very easy to tell, hey, Mudassar, here are 10 things I want you to do, but you have to sit down, Mudassar, what are the pain points you're dealing with? I feel that I'm more of a helper than a doer, right? How can I help you be successful?
Not everyone makes the news, but behind every growth-driving experience, product, and transformation are experts who shape the outcome. Welcome to Behind the Growth, a podcast for digital leaders and those aspiring to become one. Each episode features a candid conversation with a remarkable individual. Join us as we focus on their struggles, wins, and lessons learned you won't find anywhere else. Let's get started.
Welcome to Behind the Growth. I'm your host, Mudassar Malik, and today we're celebrating Gaurav Bhatia, CMO at PenFed Credit Union. Welcome to the show, Gaurav.
Thanks, Mudassar, for having me.
Thank you for joining us. Gaurav, one of the things I admire the most about you is that you think business first and marketing second. So when did you adopt this mindset?
I think I've always had the mindset, Mudassar, but I've been kind of saying it for the last 2 or 3 years. Because I grew up in a business family where there was no marketing. It was all about how do you basically spend X and get Y. And I can touch on my background later, but I think as you talk to the executive in the organization I believe in the Peter Drucker principle. He really talks about is two things the business needs to focus on is marketing and innovation, rest at all costs. So marketing really helps. So, we can talk about why marketing is important. But eventually, you have to support the customers. You have to drive revenue for the business. And if you understand these two, marketing is the how, business is what you need to do. I think just to put it really simply.
That's fantastic, my friend. So let's keep building on it and would love our audience to learn more about you and your career journey.
Yeah, so I'm not a marketer by trade. So I grew up in India. I got my undergrad like most Indians do. Either they become an engineer or a doctor. I chose the path to be an engineer, spent a year in Mumbai, and then came to Texas for my MBA. And my first job was really a company called Sabre, which kind of powers all the reservation system for airlines. And they started a company called Travelocity, like way back when. So I spent good 8-10 years really building out product. I did business development. I worked in 13 different countries as part of that program. And graduated to doing marketing and strategy and business development, whatever it took. And I remember the first ad we ran essentially was in the Dallas Morning News saying, come to travelocity.com, here's a $100 off coupon. So that's kind of where I started liking is saying, man, marketing is fun. And the organization I worked for really gave me the opportunity, right? I was always, I'll say a hand raiser is saying, hey, why can't I do that? And they gave me the opportunity, spent, I think, almost 9 to 10 years. And worked at Capital One in Texas, then worked at ARP, kind of built up the entire digital and marketing program, worked in consulting for a while because I was getting a little bored. And then the last 2 years, I've been fortunate to kind of lead marketing and digital experience at PenFed. So I feel I've kind of done everything except being a lawyer.
Okay.
So it's
but
fun.
I'm sure you go through a lot of contracts.
Yeah, I'd go through a lot of contracts. I think I get 90% right, but without legal expertise, I'm probably sure I get a lot of things wrong, right? So
Yeah, I wouldn't suggest getting that deep in it yourself, take the responsibility either. I think that's great, but I think it's a very important part as you kind of take those leadership positions. I think just having legal perspective is very, very critical. All right, so was banking, so I think you kind of mentioned Capital One was your first stint at the financial industry, right? Is that how you kind of, was it by choice that you came into PenFed and you wanted to be in the financial industry, or was it by chance?
I think everything that happened in life for me is I have a North Star, but it's been a lot of curvy roads. You asked me 20 years ago, will I be in the US? Probably not. If you asked me like 25 years ago, do I see myself beyond an engineer? I said, probably not. And I told my daughter yesterday, I said, what do you want to be when you grow up? She said, I don't know. I said, it's okay. I still haven't figured it out. And she started laughing. Dad, are you really serious? Yeah, I'm serious because 4 years ago, I didn't know. I knew about PenFed, but I never thought that I would actually work for PenFed. So I think the opportunity was huge. The leadership was great, and they explained to me why they're hiring for a role, and are very candid about what they're doing well, what they're not doing well. And I think I had a good grasp in terms of technology and the business lens. When I read the annual reports, I knew where they were making money, where they may be struggling. So I could really give them a landscape in terms of how I feel the business is doing and how can I really help them. I talked, I think, a little bit about marketing, but I believe as almost 4 years ago, I talked more about how marketing can help the business grow.
I
So I
love
think
that.
that's kind of my conversation is I always think that I'm kind of a consultant for a business. If you give me $1 in salary, can I add value? If the answer is yes, I mean, I'd say I should take the role, right? It's like, yeah, I can add value. Pay me nothing because I can help you grow. So that's the mentality I have. I don't know whether right or wrong, but served me well the last 20, 25 years. So
No, I love it, man. I think I don't think there's very many out there who can actually read, the annual report. And I think that really shows a lot about you. And I think the stance that you took that, you understood business, you talk business language, and you said, how can marketing help you? I think that was the trick. That was your winning shot. So you're also a marathon runner, right? And
yeah.
so I remember you posting a couple of days or weeks ago, and I think there was a lot of engagement. A lot of runners and marathon runners actually joined you in there. So what's the story on that side?
So I think I maybe I've never run a marathon with Mudassar, but I've run the distance. I've run about 10,000 miles.
Nice.
And I did about 3,000 miles a year. So I do about 7 or 8. I still have that gap in mind saying, I don't think I can run a marathon. I know mentally I can. So I've done 13.2 miles. And it's been persistent, right? Before COVID, I said, hey, let me start running. And I started with 3 miles and then 4 miles and 5 miles. And COVID happened. I said, okay, I have nothing else to do. I can't go to the gym, so let me just start kind of building on it. And then I said, okay, I can do 50 miles a week. I said, why can't I do 60 miles a week? Then I can do 70 miles a week. And then it kept on being what it is. And now it's become a habit. So I get up in the morning. I won't really early, around 5-ish, and I'll write something. And then I'll go for a run for about 75 minutes. And it clears the head, no devices. I think it helps me think through things. So that's kind of the marathon part of it. But I fundamentally believe that work and home and what I do is all integrated as part of me. So I'm very willing to share everything I think about on LinkedIn. I'll write on LinkedIn on a Saturday morning because, it's my day to think. So I feel that if I can write everything in less than 300 words, it helps me think through things and that kind of on top of my mind, what I'm observing. So I just, I write a lot. And only a fraction of it makes it to LinkedIn and blogs and everything else. So, yeah.
Well, thank you so much for doing that because we have the privilege of going through them over the weekend. So it's always good to have your perspective and, it's always something that works to our advantage. So thank you for doing that. Let's go to PenFed. And, 2022 has been another very strong year for you guys. And what's driving this growth and how is marketing contributing to it?
So I think PenFeds have got very good culture, right? It all starts with the culture and the people. So I think great people. I think great support from the leadership team and the board. I think marketing was one area of opportunity for them when I came in. And I believe that if they're not giving us support, we wouldn't be here without their support and the investment they make. So I kind of jokingly say, but I'm very serious, saying marketing should not be an expense. They should really put it at top line and saying that's basically investment, right? And not really an expense. So I think it's kind of half joking, but I think I'm very serious about it because I can pretty much count, right? Give me X 100,000, X million, I can show you the result very easily. I may not be able to break down my team in terms of every tactic we use because, as a marketer, you got content marketing, you've got paid media, you've got gazillion marketing tactics. But you give me X, I can give you Y and give you return. People will want to invest in it. So I think that's kind of been the philosophy in saying we want to grow. And I think we touched on it before I came on live, is that there are about 9,000 to 10,000 financial institutions in the US. And if you add Canada, probably I'll say 11,000, right, total. So people have a choice. And today we're highly distracted. And how can you be top of mind? You have to have a great product. I think PenFed, we are fortunate, we have a great product. But second thing is, how do you get it to people, right? So I think when I started, PenFed was close to about 1.7, 1.8 million members 3.5 years ago. We probably 2.8. We'll touch 3 million this year. So I think phenomenal growth. But it's important to keep in mind is your customer has to be first. You have to understand the business. And we've all products, right? So today, 2 years ago, mortgage was growing. Now our credit cards are growing. Now our deposits are growing. So how do you really pivot from one to the other fairly quickly is important. I think speed is important. I run slow, Mudassar, but we act fast, right?
Not at work.
But we act fast in PenFed. We make a decision and we move, right? We're not afraid to make mistakes. We won't overthink, but we'll go fast and we'll do what's required. And I think it's a really great team. We're a small team, but we're pretty nimble, we're pretty agile. That I think we work hard simply because our philosophy is marketing is on 24/7. So how do you really work in a 24/7 environment? But it's fun though. We like it. I think we like each other. So that's important too, right? The team likes each other. So that's important.
100%. 100%. I think that this is a very, very critical part of the success. I'm also thinking that, your LinkedIn profile says that you're a CMO and a digital experience officer. And wondering why is that and what's with the experience and how marketing and how are you playing part of it?
Yeah. So I think it's pretty opportunistic is that when COVID happened, we had digital officer leave, and then I was running marketing. I had digital background, and I run the front facings of the financial institutions, the website and the email. So I think it really helped because you could join the journey together and there was less friction. So I think that's really helped my team in saying, hey, for example, being a little more tactical. If you're running a campaign, in the old world, you'll stop and you'll give it to the digital team to create a landing page and everything else. And now my team can see the entire experience across the board and saying you run a paid media ad, you click on it, you go to a landing page, you have the metrics, you get applications. So we can measure everything. I think that's been a blessing for our team and we all learn from each other, right? So I think that's kind of helping us out. And I always feel that marketing experiences are horizontal. They support the entire organization. So how do you make sure you can see the first touch point, the last touch point? And that's the reason I've got access to our business teams to kind of show the results and they kind of feed me all the data and say, this is how money we spend, here are the results. And say, oh my God, what can we do better? Where did we win and where did we fail, right? And then what can we learn? I would say it's okay to make a mistake, but don't keep on making the same mistake again. It becomes a habit, right? So how do you kind of learn from it and just kind of improve? So I think it's fun. We like it. It's hard work. We always don't get things right. So, but we learn.
Yeah. No, I'm really impressed by that part. And I think it is such a privilege to have that access of really taking over the experience part of the organization also. But I'm quite sure the whole transformation must not have been easy. And I'm wondering, what were the challenges? Was it more challenging than you expected?
No, I think every challenge, eventually it becomes a people issue because at the end of the day, I think we have to be able to sell the vision and say, here's a vision for the organization, for the customer. And how do you really encourage people and understand where the pain points are, right? It's very easy to tell, hey, Mudassar, here are 10 things I want you to do. But you have to sit down, Mudassar, what are the pain points you're dealing with? I feel that I'm more of a helper than a doer, right? How can I help you be successful, right? And then everybody owns a piece. Our operations teams, fabulous contact center and our financial centers, right? They obviously have limitations. And can we help them be successful? What happened to our technology, right? They're really good, but there's certain things I understand, certain things they understand. Can we join together to understand what the joint pain points are and solve it? I think it takes some time. It takes longer. It can be, here's a playbook. I did it in organization A, let's just cut and paste it, it's going to work. It's not. So I think listening more and always takes more time. But that's I still feel that we've done a decent job. Still more wood to chop. But things are always going to take time. If you have a short-term lens, you're probably not going to win. You're not going to hit home runs. You really need to think long-term, right? 2 or 3 years out. And I think that's the reason I think most CMOs are a little gun-shy because they look at the headlines and say, oh, the average tenure of a CMO is very low. So you need to hit home runs day one. You can't. You don't understand the business. I mean, how can you kind of be effective the first 30 days? There's no way you can do it. I mean that's what I say. People take a step back, pause, reflect, where you can help, and where you can actually hurt by being too aggressive, right? Immediately. So I think lessons I've learned. I got gray hair right now, so maybe I've learned something along the way. But I think it's like bring people along, and it'll go a long way.
Yeah, you definitely, you've touched an important part, and I want to dig behind it. You said, you can't really get a grasp of the business in the first 30 days. What's your kind of perspective on it? What's a good runway? And how would you kind of advise the other new CMOs or, just initial budding CMOs right now?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is we go into do mode because most of CMOs are saying, here's your budget. I need you to get better ROI month one. So you don't really have the luxury. But I think you should spend the time in saying, okay, I'm going to spend 50% of my time in just operationalizing and improving the low hanging fruit. But where do I need to be in a year's time, right? And work backwards. Because if you keep on doing the same thing, chances are you're not going to experiment. You're not going to be able to learn the business. Then you become just, hey, I'm just crunching numbers and I'm basically producing day-to-day tactics, right? We have to have a broader vision and also get the support of your team and the other executives, because at the end of the day, you need your CEO to support you. You need your CFO to give you the money. You need your lines of businesses if you're a bigger company saying, hey, how am I adding value there? And then kind of string it together. Because eventually they give you the money, the organization, it benefits them. So how do you show value to your internal stakeholders? And it's going to be pretty important. It's going to be hard work. You can't really create a dashboard in like 30 days, right? Hey, what are the business metrics? I'll always look at the organization metrics and say, here are the top 5 dashboard goals. How does marketing relate to it, right? Where are we adding value? If it's not on the dashboard, chances are whatever you do, it becomes an activity and not really impact. I tell the team, focus on impact, right? Not on activity. And the tough one to swallow is saying, what do you mean and impact? I said, guys, what's the impact? I'll tell you what my impact is going to be, right? I need to get X 100,000 members this year. I need to sell so many products, and that's the impact. And then we can worry in marketing team whether you run a paid media campaign or a social media post. All these things add up, but this is the bottom line. It's pretty
focus
simple.
on the outcome and the impact.
It's pretty simple if you look at it. But it's hard work because you always have to be understanding where the puck is going, because we didn't have TikTok 2 years ago. Now TikTok has become a play. We didn't have Chat GPT like a year ago. Now that you're content with, how do you make sure where do you invest in? We got so many dollars, right? I can't put all my dollars in Chat GPT. It's not going to work, right? So I can't do TikTok because I know my demographics. So where do we play a balance, right? There's going to be pretty difficult. I believe maybe I'm the minority. I think CMO jobs have become tougher. And they will continue to become tougher because anybody in the world with the internet connection can produce content.
Yeah, if it's about content, if that's the play, I definitely don't think that's the right way to go. There's an explosion of content. And I think you've kind of touched upon it. Like you, I think, are pretty vocal about that part too, right?
Yeah, I think it's important though, right? Is saying, hey, this is how the world is changing and we'll get impacted. Maybe financial institutions are a lot slower simply because they're more regulated. But if you're a retailer, anybody can open a Shopify store, run some Facebook ads, and just get $1 million in revenue if they focus, right? Not that hard. 5 years ago, you couldn't do it. So I think that this makes people nervous also, right? Financial institutions, healthcare, they've got, it's a little bit more guardrails, but they're 10,000 financial institutions. So I worry about, okay, it's eyeballs, right? It's like if Mudassar is going to go somewhere else, I want to make sure I retain him, give him value, and try to anticipate his needs before he decides to switch. So I think it's important to always understand your customer and just kind of crawl, walk, run, right? I'm using my running thing is crawl, walk, run. That's how I started running, so I always use that, right? So crawl,
That's good.
walk, run, right? So.
I know 100%. I think that's always a good thing to do. I'm sure you've come across many obstacles and you've overcome them. And I would just love you to share some for the greater benefit of the rest of us, that there are some mistakes that you made along the way and, how did you approach them? How did you overcome?
I think the biggest mistake I made, probably 8 or 10 years ago, the same mistake most emerging marketers make, is saying nobody understands marketing. And so let's not take their feedback. I think feedback is a gift. And if you're a marketer and somebody gives you feedback, you will feel that he or she is criticizing you. And my view is slightly different, is saying if somebody really cares, they're giving you feedback. Otherwise, they would kept their mouth shut. So take feedback. It's a gift. It's not personal, right? And it's always good to listen. The God's given us, 2 ears and one mouth. That's the reason. So how can you keep your mouth shut and listen? Sometimes it's more important. And listening is key. It could be anybody, right? I tell people, right? A 10-year-old could give you marketing feedback because he or she did not like what they saw on YouTube or TV. And experiment as much as you would like to understand where the puck is going, because marketing 20 years ago was different and marketing 10 years later is going to be different. So always be relevant. And it's okay to make mistakes. Make mistakes, but don't make too many mistakes, right?
Yeah. Don't make it a habit.
Don't make it a habit. And also listen, right? Feedback, because your internal stakeholders, because if you work for a large corporation or small corporation, somebody writing your paycheck, you owe it to your employer, you owe it to your customers. And how do you really have balance? And when you make a mistake, say, I made a mistake, right? Just own up. I think, and then imagine you tell your team, is saying, guys, my decision, I made a mistake. I think you'll have different respect. And we're saying, oh, it's Mudassar's fault or somebody else's fault. I did everything right. So don't blame your team. And don't put your workload on them, right? Don't be an instant delegator saying, okay, guys, how can you help your team and support the team? I think most humans are very forgiving. And the human side, I've made my share of mistakes along the way, because to transition, I don't have enough time to talk on this part, but to go from an engineer to a product person to a marketer, I had to learn. A lot of my supervisors are very patient with me. And they basically taught me a few things, and they said, go swim, right? You're on your own. So that's how I learned. And I keep on learning. I keep on making some mistakes here and there. And luckily, they've not been too fatal. So be in good shape, right? So.
That's good. And I think it's important to, when you make a mistake, what you learn out of it. And I think that's the key thing. And, you've done well. I think it just comes to show you're sitting in a good position. You got a good head on your shoulders, and, you were progressing. So I think it says a lot about you. Let's also talk about, in addition to accomplishing key business milestones, and you guys have many to celebrate at PenFred, what is your perspective, and how important is CSR initiatives or investing in the communities you serve? So that's an important part, I think, financial institutions especially. So curious what you have to say, and what would you kind of share with us?
So the beauty about a credit union, I think for some of the audience don't know the difference between credit union and bank, we're member owned. So members own us, and we can do two things with the money, right? Either give you a better rate or give you a dividend. And we choose at PenFed give a greater rate. So best rate, better rate than a financial institution. So our DNA is serving the members, and now we extend it to more of a community, right? So, give an example. I was yesterday at the Greater Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. They had a big event in Washington, D.C., and we've got 2.8 million members. We got about 300,000 Spanish-speaking members. And we understand their needs. We understand what they need, and we kind of embed ourselves. We volunteer our time. It's not about, hey, let's just do a campaign to attract them. We are in the community. We understand what the needs are. We volunteer our teammates volunteer time. We have a foundation. We give back both in terms of money and also in terms of volunteer hours, but we also understand what the community needs. So it's sometimes very difficult to solve for every community, but we're trying to move forward and saying, what does this community need? And I think our teammates are so involved. They are basically our brand ambassador. They're saying, hey, I'm part of this community, and this community needs A, B, and C. So they bring the ideas along with their members. So I think it really becomes, I'll say, an avalanche of ideas. But unfortunately, we can only do so much. But let's just start somewhere, invest our time, and I think that's kind of helping us really understand them, but also really understanding where their needs are. And each community is a lot different. So I'm a strong believer of that communities matter, and serve the community, and the community will give back to you, right, eventually. But they should not be, hey, I'm spending X, I need to get Y return, and that's probably not going to work. But I think you have to have a giving mindset. I think our culture, that's the reason I joined PenFed, is the culture is member-owned. They're pretty open about everything. They have much more forgiving culture. I think that's one of the important things for any CMO. I'll tell, just look at the culture first. The culture is not good, chances are you're not going to be successful. If the culture is good, aligned with your values, I think you take the job immediately, worry about the money later, it'll come.
Culture is huge, man. And I really appreciate what you said, investing back into the communities. I think that goes a long way. And it's just not about immediate return, but it's really having that empathy, having that relationship with them. And I think that really always it will to your advantage.
And I think if people look at PenFed, look at our board. They're volunteer board and they invest so much time and effort. They don't need to. I mean, imagine having a board which is volunteer and really cares day in, day out. Right? I mean, yeah, sometimes it's kind of difficult, right? But they're engaged. And you're paying them a single dollar, not even a dollar. I mean, you look at a CEO post, right? He's more involved in the community. And if all the people see how our board and executive are involved in the community, I think you probably say, yeah, I can do better, right? They're doing it too.
Mm-hmm.
And we have volunteer hours, and I'm pretty sure most of our team members use it. So this part of, hey, guys, you got volunteer hours, go give back to the community. It all depends on us, whether we want to take advantage of it. Because I also believe is that organization can do only so much. It's each individual kind of talking about where they stand, what they want to do. And it adds meaning to your life. I know I'm getting older, but it adds meaning to your life, right? Giving back. You may not want to do it when you're young because you're fend for yourself. As you become a little bit older, you have family and look at the community. I think you want to give back. If organization has that opportunity for people to volunteer and give back, you tend to like it, right? So
100%, I think, and the earlier we start, the better. So this is really, I think, an important part. Gaurav, coming up on our time, and I have a question which I would just thinking that is there one thing that you wish you could do that you haven't gotten a chance at this point in your career or your time at PenFed?
yeah, I think one of the things I struggled with during COVID was, I mean, I'm a people person. I could not connect with people as much as I wanted to. So I started in fall of 19 and COVID hit after 6 months. So working remotely for 2.5 years, I feel that we lost a lot of human connection. Is how to rebuild that human connection both within the community and outside. I still feel we have a lot of, I use that word very loosely, wood to chop at PenFed. Is a growing organization. But also I think it's time to kind of take a step back and say, what else can we do besides, I'll say pure work, right? I run, that's my personal thing, community service, but I think overall I feel fortunate that PenFed is receptive to my ideas. Because sometimes you run into a bottleneck and saying, man, I'm giving so many ideas, but nothing is resonating. But I think, yeah, but I also feel that we, the marketing team, have to prove ourselves every day. So that allow us to be, I'll say, stale. Saying, yeah, we got to prove ourselves every day. I tell people every day is day one, right? And because that's how my running starts, right? I did 8 miles yesterday, Mudassar.
Mm-hmm.
Today is reset to 0, right? Again, build it up.
Yeah,
Tomorrow is to 0 again, right? So that's a philosophy I have.
Yeah.
But I think it's fun. I think have fun along the way. Don't take yourself too seriously, right? So it's very important.
Yeah. Are you making more effort to network now? Are you going to more events? Are you traveling a lot more? And how are you kind of taking care of that side?
Yeah. So our events have picked up steam this year. So we probably have an event every other week. So during COVID, we had 0 events. We do a lot of sponsorships. So I think it's really good to be with the people you're sponsoring because really want to get to see how they feel about our brand. But we're also in the community. So we do community events, we do sponsorship, but we've got different locations across US. So we tend to travel to different offices. We've got Tyson's, Virginia, we got Texas, we've got Eugene, we've got Omaha. So I think also meeting our teammates and volunteering some time there. So I think that's important. So I feel that we're coming back to office now 50% of the time. So I think that's also helping a little bit to get the people together. So I think that's probably going to be one of the areas of opportunity to go meet the new people we actually never met to starting COVID.
It's funny, man. It's crazy. We're working with colleagues that we haven't met in person for years. So it's a pretty crazy moment for us as well at times where we're having some office get-togethers and stuff and we meet our colleagues. And we're like, oh my God, we've been seeing each other virtually for 2 years. We're working thick and thin, but then, the first time you meet. So it's quite a change, but a welcome change. Gaurav, where can our listeners go to connect with you? What would you recommend for them?
Yeah, if you find me on LinkedIn, you can Google me, Gaurav Bhatia. There are a couple of other ones. Just Gaurav Bhatia, PenFed, you'll find me. I just started writing on Twitter. It's all about running. So if you are a runner, just follow me there. But reach out to me on LinkedIn. Any questions, send me. I'm pretty good at messaging you back if you're not starting to sell me something. But I'm more than happy to connect offline. And Mudassar, you have my contact. We can reach out to you. You can give them my personal email. So really appreciate you kind of having me over. That's my story. So
thank you so much, Gaurav. Thank you again. It was an absolute pleasure having you on Behind the Growth.
Thanks for listening to Behind the Growth. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to follow along on Apple, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app. This podcast is brought to you by Mobile Live, a team of digital experts specializing in designing experiences, building products, and scaling technology. For more episodes of Behind the Growth, please visit mobilelive.ca/podcast.